Hi, and welcome to the review for week 3, round 3 of the Zoom simulation. So let's first start off by looking at the charts, and we see that profits per team. So most teams have exceeded the $90 million mark in profits. This is net profits, and many teams have exceeded the $100 million mark in profits. So if you're working on round 4, your benchmark is to try to get over $100 million in net profits, which you can see in the pro forma financial statements on the finance page. Now, some companies, we have a few companies I see down here have very low profits. So if we look at these companies, SK Motors, Fortune Cars, BK Auto, these have some low net profits. That needs to be rectified. So you need to increase prices, reduce costs to get your profits higher, increase sales. Okay. Now, looking at points per team, we have most round 4, most teams exceeded the 400 points. Remember, we're trying to we're trying to come in around 400 points every round to get our to meet our minimum points required cumulatively to get an A in this project. And most teams are above 400 and they're well on their way. We had 2 teams that fell behind on their profits, and these teams were um, of probably low on their profit margins or some other reasons. So these teams should really look a little bit closely at what's happening and try to improve and get those points back up. Okay, and now what's great about this simulation is not only are you competing against other teams for market share and advertising against other teams, so it's very dependent on what other teams are doing, but you're also getting judged on your year-over-year performance. So if you have a bad year and your statistics aren't that good on the overview points, the following year you should be able to make up a lot of points because you're able to improve your scores much more. It's sort of like it's easier to go from C's to B's than to go from A minuses to A's as far as a year-over-year improvement. Okay, if we look at stock price per team, so we have this team, Powell Motors is still in first place. If I pronounce that wrong, I can barely see it from here. It's very small print. And then ED Wheels is second place still. And then we have, so not too much changing in the mix up of stock price, but we have a new high of $70. And we have 2 teams here, which is this team is just, if you see a flat stock price, it means they're not submitting. They're round on a weekly basis, which is, maybe they dropped the class. I hope that's the reason, other than just not doing the work. But most teams you see, the stock price has improved. And it should, because the industry is growing by 20 to 30%. So sales should be increasing, profits should be increasing, stock price should be increasing. So everybody should have an easy time increasing stock price, increasing profits, because it's a growing industry. Now, you want to grow the most and have the most profits to be the leader in this industry. So the trick is to really optimize your efficiency in your production, your designing your cars, of course, to get the best performance. Right. If we look at sales per team, we have a new first place in sales, LI Speed. So that's great as long as you can turn those sales into good profit margins, because anybody can have, and we have actually. We have this is a new second place team. It's kind of hard to see. These teams are pretty all about a lot of teams above. These are all the teams above 450 million in sales. So you see a nice set of teams up here that are doing very well in sales. Now, the tricky thing about sales is you have to get profits out of them. So long ago, there were profits. You could get profits easy by setting a low price. So if I was an automotive company and I set a low price on my cars, I can beat everybody in sales. But if my price point is below my costs, I'm losing money in every car I sell. So the revenues, every dollar I sell, I'm losing money. So that we don't want. We want our sales dollars to make money. So that's why even being in the middle here or lower on total sales is okay as long as your profits are up. All right, if we look at earnings per share, um, this team um, remains in first place in earnings per share, which is great. They're doing a fantastic job. And then we have a new second place in earnings per share. And how to earnings per share? It's just simply net profits divided by outstanding shares. So if you're buying back stock, that's going to help all your per share variables. As well as if you're increasing your profits and you're increasing your sales, these are going to, of course, help your per share variables in those categories as well. But we see that most teams, this team had a nice increase too. Arrow Motors shooting for the top. You can see they have a nice increase here, as well as the second place team. This team moved up a number of rankings. Jersey's Finest Autos leapfrogged a number of companies to get to this position. So we only have a few companies here who have reduced earnings, flat to reduced earnings per share, which means that your profits stayed flat or your profits were reduced. And that's not good when you have an industry that's growing at 20, 30%. Your profits should be growing at least 20, 30% along with the sales of the industry, like most teams have been doing. So got to keep a close eye on that earnings per share. All right. Okay. So that would be the charts. So let's go into the leaderboard here, and we see here the leaderboard for our third year, and a number of teams, like I said, with LISB having the highest and Alset having the second, SP Autos having the third, and ED Wheels, I guess all these companies are 500 or above, which is great. Dental Cars is also close, and Express almost tying here with 490. So these companies are, above the 80 percentile in performance over probably 5,000 other teams that have played the simulation. So fantastic performance. And we just get into some trouble at the back end here where some teams are losing points. If you're losing points, that is a very, very bad thing. And you're really not trying if you're losing points, because there should be no reason to lose points in this game, because it is pretty much at a since the industries are growing so fast, you should be always able to make points. So these companies here who are below 300, these companies below 300 should really reevaluate and watch the rest of this video and reevaluate what they're doing and get those profit margins up. Speaking of profit margins, we have, the top companies who perform very well are all in the 50% or higher gross margin category. Now, these companies should be striving to get to 60% or higher in the coming rounds. I've seen teams achieve 80% profit margins by the end of the simulation. So there's a lot of room to grow these profit margins. And again, these companies here, 50% above, are, in the top 15 percentile of companies who have done very well. So remember, this percentile rank is ranking you against, I think, the last 5,000 teams across the world who have played this simulation. So you can see how our class has a lot of talent. So you're outperforming 85% of the other teams who've played this game for round 3. So that's great. Now, if your profit margins, you started at 40%. So if your profit margins are below 40%, you're taking your company backwards. And if you know anything about the stock market or business in general, anytime a company announces reduced revenues or reduced earnings, they get crushed by their stock prices tumbles down. Their boards get fired, managers get fired, shakeups. This is a horrible thing to do. You never want in a growing industry to have reduced profit margins. So these companies have to wake up and increase those profit margins. Now, the companies in the 40% range, from 41 to 46, you haven't done enough to really keep up with the class. So you got to do more to keep up with the class and move those profit margins higher as best you can. And that means reduce costs, increase prices, efficiency in advertising, efficiency in capacity utilization on the factories and your production. So all things to kind of look at. Okay, so we know our stock price before. If we look at total points, remember you look trying to get, I believe, 2,500 total points to get an A in this class in this project. And let me just double check. So yes, you need over 2,500 points to get the full 15 points. And while I'm here, just remember round 4 is due, of course, on June 22nd. And then we have a June 29th and July 6th for the last 3 rounds. So some companies are close to 2,000. So we have uh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 companies, 6, 7 companies, about 8 companies are close to 1,800 and above. That means you have 3 more rounds for these companies close to 2,000. You have 3 more rounds to earn 500 points. Extremely easy to do. You can even, most of these companies may even do this next round. So, and look at, this one company, Precision Auto Works. Your rank in points right now is 97% across 5,000 teams. So we have some phenomenal talent in this class doing very well in performance up to this point. Now, where you want to be, of course, is you want to see where you are here. So if you're a team, maybe you're a team that has 1,500 points, you need 1,000 points to go in 3 rounds. So you should think, okay, I need an average of 333 points to get me to that 1,000 points to get me to my 2,500. So just try to keep in mind what's your average amount of points you need to earn each round to get to that 2,500 to get the full points for this simulation. Okay. Now let's switch over to my demo mode, my practice mode. Okay, so now everyone's in year 4. If I look at my overview points, I see that I'm doing well with my revenue growth, 47% revenue growth, good with my debt ratios, and I'm doing well. My profit margins are 57%, and my gross and net went up. And then my assets have been a little bit more efficient. Return on equity is a little improvement. Return on assets, earnings per share are up. My forecasts are a little bit more accurate. I have operational investments increased. So if you increase your operational investments, that's the easy 100 points. And I had a surplus, so I had 576 points last round. So let's see how. So the first step you should do as a student, in student mode, okay, let me check over my assessments. Is any place in my assessments I didn't do good in my total asset turnover? So this explains to me what it is, what my score, percentile rank in performance is, and then advice on how to improve. And my capacity utilization wasn't so good. And operational investments seem to be low compared to the average. So I just have an average performance here. Cash management. Okay, so you fully review those to see what your ranking is and what you can do to improve. I'd look over my charts, specifically my performance chart, to see how my sales did. And wow, horrible. Look, I only planned for and sold 4,000 cars. I could have sold 4,500 cars. And here I planned for 2,800 and I missed the mark by almost 300 cars. So I gave up a lot of my demand to other car companies because I didn't build enough cars. So I should look at this and, to help me forecast for my next round. Where am I? So it's important to look at the performance charts. It's important to check out the industry. What did my competitors do? How did they put their cars together? Who's the top competitor? What was their design? What was their sales price? What's their demand? How much total money did they spend in advertising? So it's important to review your competitors. Okay, then I start over in my sales page. And of course, the customer expectations have gone up. Like, customers seem to always want more, and that's always true in the auto industry. The importance factors always stay the same. So I know that fuel economy is the most important. So I'm going to maybe try to exceed that. And remember, I'm shooting for my profit margins I left off at were gross profit margins 57. So I want to try to design my cars above 57 as an average. So it's kind of hard, very hard to do that here. So, okay, so I'm going to have, see, this 5% I could lower this easily. Okay, looks like this is the best I could do um, on this. And then I'm in year 4. So whenever you're not sure about your forecasting, I always like to refer to the student manual. And in the student manual, they make this nice chart of the average. This is the average sales. If every team was equal in their design, their advertising, everything being equal, nobody was really different in any way, ran the same commercials, had the same advertising, had the same cars, this is what the average sales would be. So I have to decide, are my cars better or worse than average when I forecast? So if I think, a lot of my cars, I put a high price on them, that might lower my demand, and I might not have the best features. So I tend to think my cars will have less um, demand. So I'm going to just forecast a little bit below the averages here. So as I do, let's see what I can get to here. All right, so again, it's getting hard. I can't get sometimes I can't get every car above the 57%. So on average, I need to get higher than that. So it is pretty hard. Seems like it is going to be hard to, so I'm just going to try to play around this. So here, I got it to 57. So at least this is holding steady. I'm going to have to try to make the up on the luxury side. I usually can get higher profit margins on luxury. Now, truck is tricky because um, they're expensive to make. It's hard to get really solid profit margins on truck. So I think that I'm going to just forecast below the average because my truck just really is crappy compared. But I'm doing that on purpose because I'm putting a high price. I'm reducing, going under the engine power as far as what customers expect. So I don't think I'll sell anybody in truck, but I just don't want to sell my trucks below my profit margin level right now. So I'm willing to give up sales in a few trucks to try to make up for the fact that it's not coming in at the best profit margin. Okay. So same thing with so why am I having a hard time? I didn't do enough operational cost investments to really get me to the profit margins I need to do. So I didn't invest heavy enough in my company to get me to where I need to be. And that is a problem. I think I can eke out a small increase in my profit margins, but not near the 3 to 5% profit margin increase I really would want. So this is going to be around, that's going to be a little tougher for me to get those high points that I want, but I'm still going to try to shoot for 400 points. So I'm going to pause it while I do the advertising because that takes a little time. And I just got to review the ranges all move up as the company grows in making money in sales, so does the amount of money spent on advertising. So I got to review these and put my numbers in, and then I'll see you on the production page. Okay, so for advertising, I filled in the advertising, and I tried to go, since my cars are not the best, maybe they're at like a Hyundai or Kia level, then certainly no Toyota or Honda, as far as the cars, but I'm trying to build up the advertising side to help make up for the fact they're not the best design, most attractively designed cars. And that's very effective. And the key thing I usually say to all students, if you see this car, the Kia Soul, a low-end car, not particularly anything special, but they had such a phenomenal advertising campaign with their dancing hamsters that the millennials just went crazy for them. So they wound up selling a lot of these Kia Souls, even though they're not the best, the top number one in any category, but they sold them because the advertising was so attractive to people. Okay, so here I don't have to build any production plants. That's good. Here I'm going to need 2 production plants to catch up. That's going to cost me. Now I had some unsold inventory on truck. So that, now whenever you have unsold inventory, it does increase your assets, makes your total asset turnover numbers go lower, return on assets go lower. But the good news is that you can refurbish this inventory at no extra cost and resell it the next year. So I'm going to do that. Okay. I always want to have 0 excess shortage. I don't want to pad anything. And I'm going to need to buy 1 more production plant on luxury. Okay, so 30 million invested in plants, but my efficiency now is pretty high because I'm getting pretty close to my total capacity. 100%, 100%. This is close to in the 90 percentile. All right. So my operational investments right now I have 10, 12. So I want to pump this up. I want to effectively try to double this. And doubling my operational investments, what does that do? That will basically get me 100 points and also make my cars a lot more efficient. I didn't have enough invest in software, I think. So I'm going to go overboard in software. But anyway, it's all the same. I get $300 cost reduction per level. So I'm going to add 12 levels to double my total investment. So my total cost reduction is going to be, I think over 7,000 next round, which is going to help me to maintain my profit margins in the next round. So this is really, I'm looking at round 4 as sort of more of a building round. So I don't expect to get very high points in 4, but I'm setting myself up for a strong round 5. And that's why the points are never really even in this game. And just like a company's profits and sales are not always even every year if they're trying to build out and they're doing a lot of capital investments. So here I have $76 million surplus. I like that. I'm going to hold that. And I'm going to reduce my, try and retire some funds here. And there's limits on how much I can retire. And that's true with some business debt. There is a limit. They may say that you can only pay, you can't pay off in advance. There's a limit to how much you could pay back every year. And I'm going to buy back some stock. 10 million in stock. Okay, so this helps reduce my outstanding shares, increase my earnings per share, and things like that. So I'm going to just put some investments in there since I had some extra cash. And I'm going to roll forward and see how I did with my inputs. And so, okay, 300, which is kind of what I was shooting for. Remember I said I was shooting for about 300 points. I got my 300 points. So this is after year 4. My profit margins went up just a little bit on my gross because it was a difficult year because I didn't have enough operational investments invested. But my operational profit margin went down because I increased my advertising budget to make up for the fact my cars weren't the best priced or best made, and that affected my net too. So that affected these negative profit margins, operational and net. I just wasn't able to really improve them this much this round because I'm just a building phase. So I took some hit on some points there. But where I made points up is in my operational investments, my surplus, that added 200 points there. And I had a few points in earnings per share increase, market cap increase, revenue increase. So a mixed bag, but still 36. So if I look at my industry page on my practice company, I'll see that let's see what my cumulative points. My cumulative points so far, after 4 rounds, I've pretty much got to that 2,500. So that's sort of what I'm shooting for. So the next 2 rounds, I got to make, at least 20 points each round, which is going to be easy to do. I'm actually going to blow it away. I'm hoping to get another 500 and another, the 500 and maybe another. I'd like to get this to cumulative points to say 3,000 if I can by the end of the simulation. Okay, so that's my review. And remember that when you get into the simulation, check out your assessments, look at your industry page, look at your financials before you begin to make your next year. And I hope that you found that this video has been helpful in explaining the simulation and helping you to get to better and higher scores and be more competitive against your classmates. Okay, thank you for watching, and continue doing an excellent job with the class, including the discussion boards. And the homework assignments. to, the case studies to really make this class valuable to you. Okay, thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.